I felt like, Lord, I don't deserve this. I'm serving you diligently. Why would you give me a child like this? This one, I touch heaven. Mumu.
It's the same.
The same. It is the children whose parents can make the loudest noise that gets the best service. But in my journey, I realized actually that was fair. Stop hiding. You are not the only mother or father that's got a child with special needs. Stop hiding.
Echoes of our community.
Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back to Echoes of Our Community. Just like the name says, echoes. We're echoing what our community is saying, whether as parents, whether as people, whether as professionals, whether as young people. So I want to welcome you to this platform once again, this wonderful podcast where we tell our stories as they are, not just to say, this is what I am or who I am, but also to let people know that the things we face are real, but changes can happen, transformation can take place, and that is why we tell those stories. So today we're going to listen to another wonderful story from a wonderful person. And just to let you know, please share, like, and subscribe, and let's tell others about what we're learning. So I want to welcome you once again. My name is Margaret Taribo. I am your host. And right now, I just want to invite and welcome the wonderful woman herself, Victoria Lawrence.
Thank you so much, my dear sister Margaret. God bless you. It's a privilege to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here today.
You're welcome. And I said it off camera and I'm saying it again. It's a privilege to have you here.
Thank you,
because I've heard of you. I've seen you online so many years ago. I've heard you where you minister, where you talk, where you speak. And your story then, even in the little things that it comes out so powerfully. And today it's a privilege to have you.
Thank you so much.
You know what? I want you to let the viewers know who you are and who are you? Who's Victoria Lawrence?
Okay.
Is that your name or is there another name?
Well, that is my name. My name is Victoria Lawrence. My other name is Adeola, which is a crown of wealth.
Wow.
You know. And those who know me very closely also call me Tosin. So I've got, different names, depending on how long ago you've known me and where, or whether you're a colleague in ministry or whether you're family. So yes, so Victoria Adeola, that's my name. And that's who I am. But when I run a program, Cultural Intelligence, and one of the questions we ask is when people ask, where are you from? And most time they're asking where you're from in terms of your native culture or your background. But I always respond to say, I'm from a neurodivergent community.
Wow.
And the reason I say that is because my life changed totally 25 years ago when I gave birth to my daughter, Momo. Everything I do since then evolved around the neurodivergent culture.
So what was life before the neurodivergent? And for the sake of the viewers, what is neurodiversity?
Okay, so let me start. But neurodivergent is a new word that is used to describe people that's got different intellectual and cognitive capacity. So either you have autism, ADHD, Asperger's, different stages of the spectrum. So it's just a generic word used to describe people with neuro issues, which could range from anything that affects your mental capacity. Okay. So they call it neurodivergence. Okay. So these are people that sometimes you may not know that they have any kind of disability until you speak to them or try to get their attention. So they look perfectly okay in the physical realm, but then intellectually, mentally, they may have one deficiency or the other. So
you said before that was 25 years ago, but before then, how was life really?
Life was good. Before then, I was married with two. Well, my first son is a boy. My second one is a boy. But life was good. Life was going very well as a newlywed couple. And then I've got my two boys. I wanted a girl, but I kept having boys, and then my girl finally came. So everything was going okay. You know how you plan how your life should be from when you were younger? So it felt like I got it all worked out because, marriage, children, everything was going well. And then Moturayo came. And then everything kind of changed from that moment because And it's happened, Momo came at the time that I began to also experience marital challenges. So it was like battling those, issues at the same time. And then by the time she was 6 years old, the father moved out of the house. And then I've had to be raising these 3 children by myself since that time. But that's a story for another day.
That is so. For Momo, so you had her. Did you start seeing the changes immediately? And was that something that impacted on the home, or was it something that you just knew when she was older?
Okay, yes. With Momo, our birth was very dramatic because I had a raised LFT.
Can you explain that?
A raised is abnormal liver function. So my liver was function was abnormal, and I think they said the mark it was supposed to be between 0 to 12. I'm not medical, but mine was like 527 at the time. So I was just going about my business. I started having some back pain during my pregnancy, the final stage of the pregnancy, and then I just went to the doctor hospital that I'm having a back pain. So they took my blood test, and the results came, and they realized I have a raised LFT. So that means they have to take my daughter out immediately, otherwise she could be stillborn. So she was born at 33 weeks, almost 34 weeks. And because she was fully formed at that time, so they didn't put her in any incubator. There was no need to go to ICU because she was already 6 pounds, even at 33 weeks. So there was nothing significantly wrong with her. They just checked to make sure everything was okay in terms of fully formed. But then when we go back home, she was a normal baby. They were even worried that she might have jaundice. She didn't have jaundice. Nothing was wrong until we got home, and she was still okay. But until maybe as an experienced mother, having had 2 children before her, I understood milestones by that time. So I was expecting certain things to happen at different time, but they were not happening. So when you do the normal doctor check,
health visitors,
postnatal, all that, they'll tell you, oh, don't worry, she'll be fine. Oh, girls are different. Health visitors, the girls are sometimes different. And sometimes if they have older siblings, they do the talking for them. I was more concerned about the speech because she wasn't saying anything. Like children would say mama at the age of maybe 9 months or 11 months. Nothing like that was happening. She wasn't giving eye contact. We make fun of her. Oh, she's posing. This one doesn't smile. She won't smile when you're smiling at her. But after smiling at her, and then she won't smile at that time. But after she would then burst into smiling. So she wasn't responding to your smile as baby do when you smile at them. So I began to notice it's something. But we kind of gave a different name at different time. Oh, she's just posing. Oh, this and that. But there's that maternal instinct, isn't it, that tells you something is wrong, but you don't have enough evidence to support what you're feeling. But by the time she was 18 months, she wasn't walking. So I thought, all my kids, by 9 months, 10 months, they were walking and running. What's wrong with this one? And you heard sometimes that girls are faster.
Yes.
That's what they tell you, right?
They tell you, yeah.
And so this one is a girl, she's not fast at all. So I became concerned, but like I said, all my concern was kind of dismissed by the medical community because they felt, she's still young. Some children are just late. You don't have to worry about it. And then I registered her in a nursery, thinking if she starts, mingling with young people, she'll pick up and start talking. But nothing happened until she was about 3 years plus, and then she went to a mainstream, primary school.
So all this while, the medical, there was no support?
There was no support. She was not potty trained because she didn't have understanding of what you're trying to teach, her body function. She didn't understand all that because she has severe developmental delay cognitively. So she didn't understand all that. And you were trying to teach different things, but she's not really getting it. Speech and language did not come. Nothing was coming, So, but when she went to the mainstream primary school, the one they start when they're 3 years, three years plus, then that's when the school began to worry, because they also know that by 3 years old, a girl should be potty trained. It wasn't like we haven't tried, but nothing was happening. And that's when they started no speech at all, no dada, no mama, nothing at all, even at that time. And then they began to worry as well and listen to me. I said, well, I think there's something not quite right. I've been complaining, but, health visitor said this, pediatric doctor said this. And, they said, okay, they will see what they can do. But my husband was the one that would normally drop and pick them up from school. So every time they try to get his attention, that, your daughter, he would say, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with her. You just don't understand her. So he would dismiss them. Meanwhile, I knew, but of course, he would also dismiss my concern at home as well. And then one day, they asked for a meeting, to have a meeting with us. In fact, that meeting, their plan was to sit us down to convince both of us that there's something wrong with our daughter. So when we got there and they said, but I knew, I've been complaining, I spoke to them. Oh, really? So they were surprised that I knew, but my husband was in denial because it was like, nothing is wrong with my daughter. So that was how they started that journey. But it didn't start immediately. They just said, oh, we'll see this, we'll see that. And then she started developing seizure, which was the main concern. So she started having seizures. And my mom was around at the time. She didn't tell me she was having seizure for a long time. Nigerian mothers. So I would go to work, come back. She would have had like 2 seizures, but she wouldn't tell me.
So what would she do about it? She would just let it.
She's a Nigerian mother. She would do what they do in Nigeria. Put
the spoon.
Yes. She didn't tell me. I didn't even know that was happening. And then it was when she actually did it while I was there, because she would look after my daughter then. I was working far away from home. So sometimes I'm not back till like 6:37. And I'm tired. I would just eat, look at the children, they're fine, and go to bed or do whatever I need to do. It was when when Mumu had it in front of me over the weekend, or maybe I was off, and I said, they called the ambulance. The ambulance came, and it was when the ambulance were not asking, has she had this before? So I said, no, it's the first time. And my mother said, oh, no, she's had it before. I said, oh, really? When? I said, well, how many times? Oh, maybe 2 or 3. Mommy, how many times? Like, say, oh, she can't remember, but she's been having it, but she didn't want to worry me. You're meant to have told me. Anyway, so that's when we started that journey of diagnosis, because the first appointment I had with the neurologist person in King's Cross Hospital, and she just asked me, so how have you been coping? And I just started crying. It was like, there's sometimes you don't ask certain questions.
You don't because
I was ready to burst, and
it's like the floodgates would just open.
She just, I just started crying and crying. So, oh my goodness. And then she got worried. I said, what support are you getting? I said, nothing. So she called the Greenwich Council, called all the department. Oh, this woman need this woman. And before I knew, she just called everybody that needed to be involved. And then before the MDT meeting was happening, multidisciplinary agency, CAMS were involved, different people were involved, just because one woman made a call.
Wow.
So in a few weeks, we're having meeting with education psychologists, we're meeting with community pediatricians, we're having assessment.
How old was she then?
She was, by that time, all this story now, by that time, she was already like 6.
Wow.
5, 6, yeah. Because she was in that school, in that nursery and primary till primary. She did nursery and then primary there. Yeah, so by the time she actually got her first diagnosis, she was about 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and because they were looking at different things, because she wasn't a typical child with autism, So and at that time, more boys used to have autism than girls, so they dismissed autism straight away. So they were looking at Angelman disease, they're looking at genetic issues, different things. So that made the diagnosis longer because the actual thing that they were supposed to actually assess her for, they discarded first of all and tried to look for other things. And then they found that none of those things were the problem. So later they now do the autism ADHD assessment because her attention span was so bad, at that time. And then that's how we started the journey of diagnosis. So she didn't get a proper diagnosis for ADHD until about 6+. And then autism diagnosis when she was about 12.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was diagnosed with ADHD, global developmental delay, nocturnal enuresis, speech and language delay.
When you say the functional neuroanorexia?
Yeah, nocturnal enuresis, that is bedwetting, because she wasn't, fully potty trained. So that's a condition. So that's what they call nocturnal enuresis, yeah. And then also she's got epilepsy, seizures, epilepsy as well. So they gave her medication for that. There was no. Then she started out on medication for ADHD as well, because if she was here before at that age, she was totally restless. Restless to move from one place to another. Just yeah. So that kind of helped her, to calm down. And that was the journey at home. So everybody, all attention shifted from everyone else to Momo. So, and as you know, the disadvantage of that is these siblings, then
they will feel
neglected.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been. So when you say the journey, I know it's still a journey.
It is still a journey, yes.
But what can you say the challenges for you as a person, as a mother?
It's a lot of challenges. As a mother, the fact that you see your child suffering, and a Christian mother and a leader as well, and a prayer warrior.
You feel that you failed.
Those things, they're not good combination in real sense of it, but they're good combinations. So I felt like, where is God? The Bible says we should pray all kinds of prayer. I prayed all kinds of prayer, and I've always been a child of God. I've always been a Christian, and I felt like, Lord, I don't deserve this. You know when you feel entitled?
Yes.
Lord, I don't deserve this. I'm serving you diligently. Why would you give me a child like this? Why would the only girl that I have be like this, So I was angry, all negative emotion, denial, anger, everything, came, in sequence.
It's important. The issue of faith, because we have, whether Muslim, whether it doesn't matter, but even sometimes even our traditions and our culture impacts on how we bring up our children. Now, when you said, coming up from that story, when you said, God, why is this? But we find out that we're in denial. We don't even want the labeling. We want to use faith and prayer to cover up. How do you think that I know that's a continuing thing, but what's your take on it?
Yeah, I went through the stages, 5 stages of grief. So I think, so it was combination of denial, combination of anger, disappointment before we got to the acceptance. So you move, I was kind of moving. So, but denial didn't linger for long, in terms of recognizing that there is a problem here. However, there was also denial in the sense that, I don't want to acknowledge that she's got that disease. I don't want to use the word disability. So I will use Christianese languages. And I was very, happy-go-lucky kind of a person. Never allow it to bother me. But when I'm alone, I may cry. So that's still a form of denial. So you go through that. And then, of course, because I was the praying mother, I will pray and I believe that God will answer. So oftentimes you pray, do all kinds of prayer, fasting, dry fast, marathon fast, all kind of fasting. And every time I want to wake up one day, when you pray, you get to a place in prayer that this one, I touch heaven. That kind of prayer, no. This one, I know that I've touched heaven. And then I want to wake up the following morning. I will wake up the following morning, I will go and see her that I touched heaven last night. You could see me this time, and then I'll go and wake up in the morning. I will see her. Mumu.
It's the same.
The same.
And that's the thing. And you can find out that time is going, all the support you need, all the things you need to get in place because you're the...
That was it.
I think it's important that...
I did not claim disability living allowance.
Wow.
Everybody will come to talk to me about it when we started the diagnosis process. The first thing they do, you should apply for this, you should apply for that. The word disability, I didn't want to touch it. So, because faith tells us, that's how we were taught, but we know better now. Faith teaching tells us you don't accept the diagnosis. That means you deny the diagnosis. You don't use the word disability. You have to confess positively. So in a way, your faith cannot make you to deny. But in my journey, I realized actually that was fair. Because faith, fear runs away from facing the problem.
Yes.
Fear tells you don't acknowledge.
But then
fear tells you, but faith look at the
you
problem.
look at the problem and you work
call
with it.
it.
Yes.
You call it what it is,
Is.
and you combat it with the word of God. You don't deny. Faith don't deny it. Faith says there is no money in my account right now, but I know that my Redeemer lives. The money that I need to do this project, God will provide. But you're not denying the fact that there's no money in your account. It's, no, don't say that. You're the head and not the tail. No, I am the head and not the tail. But then there is no money in my account. I know that for sure. But that's a fact. It's not the truth. Yeah. The truth is, I serve a God whose name is Jehovah Jireh. So I know that this project will be done, even if there's no money in my account today. So the same way, yes, the diagnosis is ADHD, but that's not my daughter's identity. Mm-hmm. Her identity, she's God's masterpiece, created anew in Christ Jesus for a good work that God has prepared from beginning of time. But it took me some time to get there. So it was a journey of up and down with the Lord, disappointment, and then there is no crusade in London that did not take her to. Hey, this one is coming. I won't mention their name. This one is coming. We carry, we go. We come back the same. Another one is the one that was most disappointing, which I always share, was the one that after I went to a few, I said, Lord, if God wants to heal my daughter, he can do it in the living room. He can do it in the toilet. He can do it anywhere. Yeah. Why do you have to carry out? The power of God. God is not, is not limited to a gathering with some people. Anyway, so one of my closest friends at the time said, there's this Baba who is so good. Let's go and see him. From one of our churches, Christ Opposite Church at the time. And said, let's go. I won't mention the name anyway. But let's go. This man is very good. So she's been telling me for months. I said, Omo, I'm not going. If God wants to heal this girl, God would have to do it in his own way. Anyway, after several attempt, and then I was looking prideful and arrogant, like I don't want to go. So okay, let's go. So we went to meet the man. She prayed for me. So don't worry, God has given him specialty in this area. I should come back so days, early in the morning, 6 a.m., because that's when those prayer needs to be said. That epilepsy. My major problem there was even epilepsy. All those autism, like this epilepsy that we can be anywhere. She would go into seizure. That was really a tough one. Anyway, we went. So my family were very close knitted. So I told all my siblings, they said I should pray. Mom would be praying. Everybody was fasting and praying, and we all went early in the morning with this, my friend. Got to this wonderful man of God's space, and the security came out of the door. What are you doing here? Israel, and then my friend who knows them. Oh, no, Papa said we should come. He said, he just went to bed. We've been doing night vigil. Yeah, he gave us this day. Look, he said we should come. And okay, you have to wait. Went upstairs. Baba did not remember he said we should come. The Baba did not remember he said we should come. So we left that day. We waited for a while. After the man said, well, he's not ready. You can't see anybody sleeping. We left. So I go back to my house, cried like I've never cried before. But in the middle of that day, and that was on my birthday as well. When I thought this was going to be a birthday present that God is going to give me. But as I wept bitterly on that day, I remember I look on the wall. I wept, laid on the floor in my living room, and the Lord began to speak to me. And I saw a writing on the wall like Elemona. And I went to search. He said, God is faithful. In Deuteronomy, where God is faithful. And God was telling me, I am faithful. So I have to look unto the faithful God to walk me through this journey, not look to any man. And from that moment, I stopped going from one place to another.
And He gives grace.
And God gives grace. And God began to teach me that healing can be processed, So God began to show me how he was healing my daughter step by step. The speech that he said she would never have, now she has speech. Wow. Now she speaks. Certain things that we thought she would not be able to do, now she's doing them. So her cognitive ability is much more better than it was or that the doctor prescribed or suggested. So that for me is healing. And God is not done with her yet.
Healing is a process for each and every. And healing is not the way we always see it.
God healed my mind first by giving me peace. That was the first thing that happened. So He gave me peace of mind that, listen, my grace is sufficient for you. So I needed to be healed first. So it wasn't, forget about my daughter, I needed to be healed from the pain of disappointment, from the pain of anger, that I had with God, that I had with people, that I had with myself.
Yes.
I needed to be healed first.
I think it's important that we recognize that.
Yeah.
And people, like you said, you've gone through stages of
Grief.
grief.
Yeah, yeah.
And people need to, because the denial,
Yeah.
the recognition, and the acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And a lot of, like I said, whether people are of different kinds of faith,
Yeah.
but the denial is still there, the fear is still
It's
there,
there.
The worries are still
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and it makes the child suffer more if you don't do
Absolutely.
that.
The longer you live it, because early intervention is so important. So for everyone out there, you're still praying over the child instead of seeking medical support. I want to encourage you. Early intervention is very important. The longer you live it, the longer it's going to take for your daughter or your son to flourish. So because God has given wisdom to doctors and to medical people and professionals to support these children. So early intervention is so important.
When you
And,
say early intervention, how early do you think? Is it as early as possible?
As
Because some
early-
people are denied until their children are. I've had situations, even recently, last week, a child was even 18, but we said once the child is 18, it's become an adult. So that's where it becomes more challenging to get the help. So.
A lot of people wait till the child is in secondary school, from our culture, because parents are just in denial, and they're praying. And then by the time the child gets to secondary school, things get worse. That's when they're now looking for emergency help here and
I
there.
heard a story once. A family from Nigeria, they came in. The mother was in denial. The family was in denial. The child went to primary school, was fine.
Yeah.
But in secondary school, they started assaulting the child.
Yeah.
That's when the school now picked up that this child had.
Yeah, because sometimes some children might have intellectual ability, but they're socially awkward. So the ability to mingle with people. These are children that are in church sometimes say, oh, this one like to be by himself. I like, we use different words to describe very awkward or whatever. But because they're masking it, especially girls. Girls are very good with masking. They will mask that behavior, mask everything until they get to, secondary school when, of course, sometime now, even as early as primary school, young children are no longer as kind as they should be, But in secondary school, that's when the awkwardness show out more. Then hormones, puberty start raising its head as well. So their body changes, all those hormonal changes as well. Then plus the undiagnosed condition, everything then comes together. So then when they now start responding, in a physical, aggressive way, they now think this mental health becomes,
or they think it's behavior
issues,
the exclusion from school.
They are labeled bad and all those kind of stuff. But actually, these are undiagnosed, issues that have been left for a very long time.
I think another challenge for us as a community is that we don't put a name to it, because we've always said that autism has been there for forever, but we've never put a name to it.
That's another, and that's partly our faith. You see, the teaching on faith they tell you that don't accept whatever doctors say. Don't accept. Doctor have said hold on to the word of God, which is true. But what you don't accept, you cannot deal with it the way you ought to deal with it. Do you understand? So if they say your child has speech and language difficulties, you already know that. So what can you do to support your child? You might need speech and language therapists. When Moses, when Moses was called back to go and lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, the first thing he said to God, but I'm a stutterer. I'm a man of slow speech. And God did not heal the slow speech. So if Moses was here today, he would probably, as a young boy, he would probably be getting speech and language intervention anyway. Of course, he was raised by rich people, so they wouldn't have problem anyway paying for all those things, right? He was raised by a household of the king. But God gave Moses Aaron as intervention. So intervention can be anything. It could be through education psychologists who will assess your child, identify their learning style and capacity, and then write a report on how the school can support your child to learn in a way that helps them to flourish. That is intervention.
So do you think the services that you've received so far, how helpful have they been?
It has been amazing. I wish it happened earlier, but I think God made it happen early enough because it was still in primary school. And from that moment, she was in mainstream primary school. And after a while, we identified a special needs school for her to go. And the school worked very closely with us because I was very involved in my daughter's life. So I asked questions. I researched as well. To the moment I knew, I accepted that, okay, we got to do something now. And one time they wanted to send her to a special needs school. And I went to look at the school, but she was going through period then where she will copy anything that she sees for the first time. Wow. It doesn't matter what, wherever we go, if that thing is bad or good, she sees it, she copies it. Then it takes you weeks to stop her from doing it. So we went to this school and she saw this child who they're teaching to walk, mobility, and it was dragging the leg one by one. Momo started dragging her leg. When we got back, you know, she was literally, why are you doing that? And then I remember that was the child that, so I told them, I said, she's not ready to go to that school because she's going to pick all the negative things that she see people do there. Wow. So in some areas she has capacity. So she's going to go there and she will regress because she's seen other things that is not, those who are not up to her standard. Yeah. And I showed them evidence. Oh yeah, you're right. We noticed that she's been doing that. I said no. So later, after a year, from that time, she still went to the same school, special needs school. But this time, she's gone past the stage where she was copying everything.
I think that's very powerful because sometimes we just put everything in a box. We say, no, we don't want our children to go to special needs school because we don't want them to. But like you said, it's about looking and weighing the option and the timing. Yeah. And I think this is quite important.
It's the timing. So I waited for the right time and then she went to special. Because in the special needs school, you have all the professionals there. Especially if your child has any kind of medical condition that require regular assessment. Being in a special needs school is the best because you have everybody on site. Occupational therapy is on site, speech and language is on site, community pediatrician is on site, all manner of therapy, they're on site. But in a mainstream school, they're not there. They come in and then they go, you know. So there is a time for me. People are very hot on inclusion. They want everybody to be in the same school. But inclusion fails many children because what they do in mainstream school sometimes, they bring these 4 or 5 children out of the classroom into a room in a corner and have a support assistant learning teaching them not qualified. So basically that learning support assistant is like a child minder.
Wow.
Basically, that's what they're doing. So they just sit with your child and teach them literally nothing. So while you're busy fighting for your child to stay in mainstream school, they're not growing, they're not flourishing because they don't have the capacity sometimes to look after them. So in a special needs school, less students in class, more one-to-one, you know, for your child because depending on the EACP and what they write there, you know, so they get better support in there. But then every child is different. So you have to go with what works for your child.
It's good to hear that you've found some success in the services, but a lot of our families will say they've been struggling.
Yeah.
But I think some of it is what you've just said now, the discernment about where and the understanding and the knowledge. Because do we think we're learning enough? Do we think we're willing to learn enough about the system?
A lot of our people are very lazy, I have to say, without apology. Very lazy. They want things to be done for them. You know, for your child to flourish, you have to make a lot of sacrifice, including for fitting your career. You might not be able to be that excellent accountant for another 5 years of your life. And that would be the best investment you ever give your child. So there was a time I couldn't work. There was a time I had to go part-time. So these are all the things that some people are not willing to do. Oh, I have to pay my bill. I have to do the, but if you don't, the school can only do their best.
It also comes from that cultural thing whereby we believe that it's the school's responsibility.
It is not the school's responsibility.
It's the doctor's responsibility. It's somebody's responsibility.
That's what I want to say. So in the past, they used to call this code parenting, which means children, because I say to parents all the time, it is not the children with the most need that gets the best service. It is the children whose parents can make the loudest noise that gets the best service. Did you get that? So your child might have need for so many things and get nothing. If you're waiting for the school to recommend, you're waiting for the professional to call you, you're waiting for this, you will wait forever. So it is the children whose parents knows how to use the law, knows how to use the right, knows what to do after investigating, writing, and researching themselves. And they say, this is what I'm trying at home, and it is working. Can we do it as well in school? Wow. Those are the parents whose children are getting all the support that they need. You understand?
You know what? I'd like us to take a pause there, because one of the reasons why we do what we do, working with parents, is to make sure that we empower, to say, know yourself, know who you are, and let's get rid of that authority bias, that myth to say, oh, it's somebody else's job. And what Victoria is telling us on this podcast is so important, that the parent that makes the loudest noise.
The loudest noise.
So let's make that noise. Yeah. Let's be advocates.
Fight for your child.
Yes.
Fight for your child. You and don't be tired. You have to separate your emotion from from your focus. Because sometimes when you see these children, you get emotionally drained, and with everything you see, even yesterday, was it even yesterday or even today, I still went through that process where my daughter started her period. And we went out. I didn't know. I didn't have any spare clothes. So you ended up looking for somebody to give her clothes to wear, a change. 25-year-old, you still have to change for them. So there's so many things I still have to do. And, this morning we went through the same process. And we're late to church because I had to, help her with personal care. But all those things, it is what it is. It is. But you have to be there for your child. Go online, research, find information. My child went to an independent school that is outside of our borough because I found it myself. They didn't tell me it existed. They just gave me the one that they have in the borough and outside of the borough. I found it myself. I made a case why she needs to go there because she loved music. They rejected it. We went to tribunal.
Wow.
And they overruled it, and then they put her in that school, which the council had to pay for, because I found the school that met my child's needs. You see?
Wow.
And also, Educational Healthcare Plan, EACP, is like a Bible that your child needs. So most parents are not involved in their daughter's or son's EACP. So you have an EACP, the school tells you, or the local authority tells you, we want to put this, we put that, you just agree, okay. Even the place that you're meant to put input as a parent, always blank most times with our parents. They don't know what to write. They're not writing anything. They're not querying anything. They're just saying yes to everything. And once you sign that EACP, whatever age your child is when you sign it, you have to fight to get it changed. Because it's a legal document. Once it's signed, all they do is review every year, but they don't amend it. To get it amended, you have to go through a process.
Yes, I was told that you've got to, for each child, especially if they finish secondary school, they have to do another assessment. For A-levels, another assessment.
Most time people don't know that. So you just do assessment from primary school. And this is me learning the hard way as well. Because I didn't know my daughter needed to do one in secondary school. So the same one we had from when she was 6 years old, when we went through this diagnosis, and added one educational psychologist from that time. That's the same one she used in secondary school. Until I found out, they should have changed it. So it was when she now needed to go to another college, where after she finished secondary school, that I realized this EACP is redundant. It doesn't even meet her need anymore. But we have meeting every time. They say, oh, Momo will benefit from speech and language. That doesn't mean anything. In EACP, you have to quantify it. You have to specify that Momo, whatever your child's name is, will benefit, needs 1 hour occupational therapist input every week. Define, specify, quantify.
Wow.
So you have to define it. You have to specify and quantify how long, 30 minutes, 1 hour. The frequency, weekly, what is it? OT, and they put 1-to-1, specify. Momo will benefit from 1-to-1 OT intervention every week for 1 hour. And OT intervention, 30 minutes in group setting. Speech and language intervention, 1 hour weekly. It has to be defined, it has to be specified and quantified. People don't know this. So they will just put things like, angel will benefit from OT intervention. That's it. That could mean that once a year or once every 3 years.
And then and then the teacher or whoever, they will just capitalize on your ignorance and just leave it like that.
They don't do anything. They don't, even the one that is quantify and specify, you have to hold them accountable. You don't just assume. So when you go for the review meeting where you have with you ask, so who is the person taking this? In fact, the law said they have to be qualified. So it can't just be teaching assistant. He has to be a qualified person that gives the support. That level of information, most parents don't know it. Do you understand?
It's so sad because you are a confident person, and we have a lot of confident parents. But there are some parents, they are not confident at all.
To challenge.
English is not even their first language. They just expect. So, what advice would you give to those parents? What can we do?
Number one, I'll tell them to come out of their hiding place. Stop hiding. It's not that deep. You are not the only mother or father that's got a child with special needs. Stop hiding. That's number one, because our people hide too much. You know.
Oh, we said this before.
Culturally, they will hide. You won't know that this thing is happening. Stop hiding. There's so much information now available. So many support groups available where information are being shared on a daily basis. So I was able to find out about the school that my daughter went to because one of the women in my support group told me about the school, sent me the information, even gave me the lawyer that they used to do their own tribunal. You understand? So information we have. When I started this journey, I didn't know anybody that had a child with special needs. There was only one lady I used to see at the bus stop of my house that I would go to at the time. You know, she also run. I'll go to her. She would give me advice. You know, but now on our platform, we have 460 parents in that same platform of children. Some of them, their children is 35, 35. Where were you when I needed help? Where is everybody? Everybody was hiding. And we see our people today who are still hiding.
They're still hiding.
So come out to come and get help. And some people, they will be on one prayer platform to the other. Pray, the platform that they need to prioritize, where they're getting information, where we're running seminar to give information.
We're doing courses, we're doing programs.
They won't come. But they are 7 a.m. prayer, 5 p.m. If where information will not be shared that will help your child. Do you understand? We have people on that platform who are working with different government agencies. So they have first-hand information that they give you. We have social worker on the platform that tell you, go back to your social worker, ask for this, ask for that. They're giving you information that will equip you to go and do. But they won't come. They won't read that platform. Somebody even gets, I put it on archive, because it's very busy. You're now disturbing my life with information that we've already shared on the platform, Parents need to be more proactive.
Yes. They
need to ask the right questions. You need to stop hiding. Because when you come out, ask questions, there are more people available to help you, to offer you services. I used to have a lady that would come from like Dagenham to Chatham to do one-to-one speech and language for my daughter. Do you understand? So if I didn't ask, I won't know such person exists.
Stop hiding. I think that is it. Stop hiding.
Come out from your closet.
It's interesting. And because of your journey, just to end now, tell us what you're into now. Are you still in your business? Are you still working, or is it just focusing on the work because of your daughter?
Yeah, what I do, I work now, 4 days a week. But then I run a charity that's called the Father's Joy. And an arm of that charity is called Angel Special Program, which was birthed. My daughter's first name is Angel, so it was inspired by her story. And what we do there, we support families who are raising children with special needs. So we have a WhatsApp platform where parents are there. We give information. We pray. We still pray. First Thursday of the month, we pray because we believe through prayer, God gives a revelation, instruction, information that we can then go and use and apply. So we pray and then we take them out every year to the beach. We have one coming up on the 14th of August. We're taking them to South End. We hire coaches that pick up people in different areas, Wembley, Stratford, Bexley, different areas, and then we go together because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming when you're trying to go to the beach with a child with special who needs 2 carers to be with them, and then you feel everybody's looking at you. There's a lot of shame attached to raising a child with special needs, you feel inadequate because people give you dirty looks. You know, they think you're child, you don't know how to raise a child. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So when we go as a group, you're less likely enough to be ashamed or bothered about anybody giving you funny look because we are plenty. In the few years, 2 years ago, we took over Margate. You know, we're plenty there, and it was all of us. So even we are more than people who will be giving you dirty looks. So who cares who is giving you dirty looks?
And there's power in numbers.
There's power in numbers. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. We support family. We support parents. You know, during COVID, we gave us some laptops. So family were struggling, whose children needed the laptop at the time. So depending on the need, we're just there to serve the community and to be a blessing to the mothers.
I think for me, on this podcast is important because we know that faith groups are quite important in what's happening in the system now.
Absolutely.
And your conversation with us today is focusing on faith groups. So whether you're a person of prayer, whether you're from the whatever faith group you
Community,
want to, it's about your child.
Yeah.
And for me, it's also powerful from what you said. It's don't hide. It's also about empowering parents to advocate appropriately.
Yeah.
But you can't do that alone. So I want to say thank you today for for being real, for being open.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to having you again. On this platform.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So this has been Echoes of Our Community. I want to say thank you to Victoria Lawrence. She has shared a lot. If you want to know a bit more about what she does, we'll share her details on the platform. And I look forward to seeing you next time on Echoes of Our Community. Thank you.